What is up, everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be reacting to Going Around in Circles, the Angela Motorsports story. I'm looking forward to this because I honestly have no idea what I'm getting myself into here. This was requested quite a while back and I'm finally getting around to it. I like all the other videos I'm doing at the moment, you guys like request. I mean, I say it in every video, like if you have any other videos that you want me to react to, like drop them in the comments, which is great, and I do get round to them. But on top of all of like the recent requests, I've got such a big backlog of like all the requests that people have asked me to get to like months ago. So I've got this tab open, it's got like 100 different tabs on it and all these videos that you guys have requested, and I'm slowly getting around to each and every one of them, so bear with me. But we are getting into Going Around in Circles today. I'm assuming by the title, because there's a stereotype about NASCAR about how they go around in circles. That's where my brain is going. But if it's about NASCAR, I don't know what motorsport it is on. So I'm just going to shut up and we'll get straight into it.
NASCAR, at the making of this video, has been around for over 76 years.
It is about NASCAR. I knew it.
South side of the country to its international attention thanks to multiple series around the world and broadcast reach, it's safe to say that there are thousands of stories to share from the motorsports. Most like to talk about the feel-good stories that have come out of the sport, or the exciting ones that have left images cemented in the minds of millions for decades to come. With that being said, there are a few stories that tend to be swept under the rug due to some form of controversy or the fact that it led to a rabbit hole that no one saw coming. It's hard to believe this coming from a sport that is mostly known for going around in ovals for hours on end. But I assure you that there are stories out there that sound too unbelievable to be true. Well, that's what this new series is going to look into. I have always been a fan of crazy stories that have come from my favorite motorsport, and I feel like it's time to share some of them with you. So let's dive into a new series that I like to call Going Around in Circles, the weird history of NASCAR.
Okay, I'm excited.
When you think of a NASCAR race car, what is one of the first things that come to mind? For most fans, they would typically say the sponsorship is one thing that catches their attention when looking at the race car. Sponsorship is one of the most important assets when it comes to NASCAR racing, as it is no surprise to anyone that being in NASCAR is super expensive, and not many team owners are sitting on billions of dollars to fund a race team all by themselves. This results in the team marketing out their car to potential partners in order for them to get ad space for the thousands watching in the stands and millions watching at home. These sponsorship deals can bring in millions of dollars for the team, leading to many teams doing whatever it takes to get as much money as they possibly can. Leading to our first story of the series involving a woman who decided to start up a team in order to scam millions of dollars from potential sponsorship. This is the story of Angela Motorsports and what has to be the craziest scam in NASCAR history.
Okay, I'm so excited for this.
The start of this story does not begin in NASCAR, nor stock car racing, nor even in the United States.
What?
Instead, this story begins on the other side of the world, in the Middle East, in the country of Iran. Fatima Karimkhani was born in Tehran on April 27, 1976. Not the most ideal time to be born in Iran, as this was around the time when Islamic Republic of Iran was pushing to overthrow the Pahlavi dynasty, leading to 60,000 lives being taken during the overthrow. Definitely not a safe place to live in the world, which resulted in the Karimkhani family to move to Europe to avoid the conflict. In her early years, there's not too much information regarding this future NASCAR owner, but after she reached adulthood, Fatima would move on over to the United States in 1995 to begin her new life.
Wow, okay.
When Fatima Karimkhani moved into the United States, she wasted no time in trying to obtain her citizenship, even if it meant using immoral tactics. I also want to give a fair warning, as the timeline does get a little hazy during Miss Karimkhani's first years in the States. But one thing to remember is that as outlandish as these stories may sound, they are true. Fatima first started work in her 20s as an adult performer in both the state of Texas and California. While she was entertaining the masses at an adult club known as the Candy Cat nightclub, she caught the eye of one individual, Rayford Tyler Jr., who, allegedly, was interested in having a long-term relationship with Fatima Karimkhani. The two would marry. However,
Wow.
it was not due to true love, but rather the first of many ways Fatima tried to scam into getting citizenship in the United States.
Oh, okay.
For those wondering why Fatima would try to scam her way into getting a U.S. citizenship by marriage, it's mainly because marrying a U.S. citizen is one of the easiest ways for a person to gain citizenship. Of course, it's not as easy as just walking into court and saying that you're married. There are a few hurdles a person has to go through in order to gain citizenship.
Okay.
One step includes talking to an interviewing officer with the government, which is done to help eliminate marriage fraud. The marriage interview consists of an officer asking personal questions. For an example, if the spouse cannot remember the other's birthday, then the officer would determine that it is a marriage fraud. There are also residency requirements and personal requirements that a person must meet in order to get approved for naturalization. One specific section in the personal requirements is that they must be a person of good moral character. As we dive deeper into this story, we will soon learn why Fatima would never be able to pass this part of the citizen application.
God.
As expected, the attempted citizenship failed for Miss Karimkhani.
This is like a true crime
inevitably
documentary.
ending her relationship with Rayford Tyler Jr., but never divorcing from Rayford. It wouldn't be much longer that she tried to be with another person in an attempt for citizenship with someone tied in with the justice system. In May of 1996, Fatima met a 40-year-old judge named Dion Harkness. Similar to Rayford Tyler Jr., the two would pursue a long-term relationship and move in together, but similar to the previous relationship, it was all done for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. I mean,
The
that's
two
a way
moved
to
in
go.
together
Just
and later married,
marry one
which
of
would
the
be a terrible
judges.
decision for both parties, but especially for Dion Harkness. Both were heavy drinkers, and the two would never get along throughout the relationship, as the marriage was constantly dealing with verbal abuse and, according to Fatima, physical abuse.
What?
On 3 separate occasions, Karimkhani accused Harkness of domestic violence and sought to have him arrested.
I got
It
chills.
would be a good time to mention that besides Fatima's immoral positions on gaining citizenship and how she made money, she was also a compulsive liar, as well as a regular user of cocaine. Things were so bad that even her
It just
friends
keeps
admitted
getting
that she had
worse.
a bad lying problem.
I thought this
No
was
one
about
truly
NASCAR.
knew why she was like this. Regardless of the reasons, it was going to affect her husband in the worst ways possible. After these multiple accusations, Dion Harkness lost his seat on the bench and the ability to practice law for a minimum 3 years.
Oh,
A
no
shocking
way.
situation to happen for the now ex-judge, as he was never arrested for these accusations and had no prior criminal record. Many of his co-workers stated that the exact opposite was happening and that he was the one that was being abused by Fatima, and even showed up with marks on his face. The two did the best thing by separating at the beginning of 2001, but not before they brought a child into the world.
Oh,
It was
what?
reported
There's
that Dion
children in
tried
this
his
now.
best to keep the relationship together, but finally had enough of it all after another fight on February 24th of 2001. He would pack up his stuff and go to Thousand Palms to stay at a hotel in an attempt to avoid Fatima. Although there was a kid involved, at least Dion could slowly gain control of his life again and try to build up what his then wife destroyed. Sadly, that would never happen.
Oh no.
2 weeks after Dion left Fatima, he would randomly stop showing up to work. Many of Dion's co-workers feared that she was able to locate which hotel Dion was staying at to avoid her. On March 6, a wellness check would be made for the past judge to see if he was even staying at the hotel. Police would find Dion Harkness, but sadly, he was dead. The 40-year-old man was found with a
I just
self-inflicted
got chills.
gunshot wound to the head region, as well as scratches across his face. Amongst the horrendous scene was a note nearby his body stating that he never hit his wife.
Oh.
An odd letter to write before the man's passing. Dion Harkness' death was ruled to be an apparent suicide. However, attorneys believe that maybe Fatima knew a little bit more about her husband's death than what was originally thought. One attorney named Clifton Shang stated that no one ever had the chance to tell her what happened, but she somehow knew about the whole situation, as she immediately demanded his last paycheck and even his $5,000 death benefit. This led many to believe that she had something to do with Gail Harkness's death, or at the very least, she was in the room when the incident happened.
Yeah.
Riverside County authorities tried to interview her about the incident, but before they could, she already packed up with her daughter and moved to Texas without a trace. She didn't even stay for her husband's funeral, showing to everyone what kind of human being Fatima, now last named Harkness, truly was.
Yeah, that's horrifying. I just wanted to watch a video about NASCAR. I'm getting this,
Fatima was
like,
now
true
living
crime
a new
documentary.
life in the state of Texas. She had changed her name to Angela Harkness, probably to separate herself as far as she could from what happened in California, and decided to go back into stripping as a means to take care of expenses. At this point, Angela, which is how I will be referring to her from this point on, had basically started fresh with a little bit of blood money that no one at this part of the country knew about. She was ready to dive back into the world of scamming. All she had to do was find someone who was willing to fund her illegal lifestyle. She eventually found that said person at her job at a Texas strip club in the fall of 2001.
Okay.
His name was Gary Jones.
Gary Jones.
Gary Jones was a bank loan arranger at a Wells Fargo branch, and unlike Angela's past relationships, was fully invested in scamming his way into as much money as possible. Whether it was taking loans out on Gary's sisters or even his then wife, yes, he was married when they met. Both Gary and Angela had no shame when it came to embezzling. The greed was starting to get so great that even illegal loans of over $100,000 was not enough for the evil duo. If they wanted to fulfill their greed for money, then they needed to find a scam that could supply them millions of dollars. The question was, what was that particular market going to be? Well, it wouldn't take long for Angela Harkness to decide on what their new venture would be, and that was owning a team in NASCAR.
Of course.
It's still unclear on why Angela Harkness decided to go with starting her own NASCAR team. Perhaps it was the fact that sponsors during this time were paying millions of dollars up front, since it was becoming one of the most popular sports at the time. It could have also been the fact that both her and Gary Jones were minorities, which was something that NASCAR was greatly pushing in the sport, as minority drivers and team owners were extremely limited. Or maybe she just liked beer and fast cars going around a racetrack.
Maybe.
I don't know. But whatever the case may have been, the Khan duo were ready to dive in head first. On October 25th, 2002,
surely people
Angela
recognized her
Harkness and Gary
face,
Jones
though,
announced the
right?
formation of Angela's Motorsports at Atlanta Motor Speedway. A lot of excitement in NASCAR's eyes to see this team be formed, as they saw what looked to be a dream diversity team having a Middle Eastern woman and African American man start up a NASCAR team. No background check was ever given to either team owner, a move that NASCAR would soon regret.
Yeah.
Even though Angela Harkness and Gary Jones may have had malicious intent in their new venture, they at least did their homework. The team would be running Fords in the then Busch Series and have their cars and engines be supplied by none other than Robert Yates Racing.
Okay.
Robert Yates had some of the best engines in the game, so being a partner with Robert Yates Racing was a great move on the team's part. The contract cost would be $900,000 with $150,000 down payment, in which Gary provided.
Oh, of
we
course.
will talk about how he was able to pay that large sum later. As for the driver of their new team, they would hire Mike McLaughlin to pilot their 02 Ford for the 2003 season. McLaughlin was a talented veteran with multiple Most Popular Driver awards, a championship in the Modified Tour, 6 victories in what is now known as the Xfinity Series, along with 2 top
I feel sorry for the drivers that got roped into this.
They were able to stop the driver thanks to Joe Gibbs Racing replacing him in favor of his son, Coy Gibbs, the father of current NASCAR Cup Series driver, Ty Gibbs. Mike McLaughlin signed on with the team as it felt like it was a good team for him to start the twilight part of his long career. The crew chief and general manager were also talented figures in the sport, as Angela Motorsports hired both Harold Hawley and Clyde McLeod. Harold Hawley was a champion-winning crew chief from the 2000 Busch Series season with Jeff Green, while Clyde McLeod led both Mike McLaughlin and Top 09 to victories in the Busch Series. To say that this trio had a lot of potential with strong Yates engines and NASCAR's backing would be an extreme understatement. But since they had a little bit of time before the 2003 season would begin, Angela Motorsports would enter their first race as a team in the 2002 season finale race.
Okay.
Angela Motorsports couldn't wait for the 2003 season and wanted to show how successful their team could be. One theory suggests that the reason they might have done this was to grab the interest of potential sponsorship for the following season. However, I haven't found anything that can confirm that. But since we know about how these two owners really are, it wouldn't be that far-fetched. Since Mike McLaughlin was finishing out his contract with Joe Gibbs Racing, they hired Jay Sauter to drive their 02 WiredFlyer.com machine, a sponsor that plays into the story a little bit down the road. They also had a partnership deal with Kevin LePage's number 71 team and had WiredFlyer.com as the primary sponsor for his car as well.
Right.
Some people mistake this as an Angela Motorsports car, but it ran under the owner of Kevin LePage, who owned a team that season known as Matrix Motorsports. Regardless, both entered the large entry list for the season finale and qualified respectively into the field, having speeds faster than about 40% of the cars that entered.
No way.
The performance on race day was slightly better as both Jay Sauter and Kevin LePage ran the top 20 at least 1 point in the race. Although Jay Sauter fell a couple laps down and Kevin LePage DNF'd near the end of the race, the team showed that they were serious about joining the Busch Series.
The only video. That's crazy.
During the off-season, nothing seemed to be unusual for Angela Motorsports. Payments were made to their driver Mike McLaughlin along with Robert Yates Racing. It looked like the team was actually going to make it and even prosper in the series because when the team went to Daytona testing in the month of January of 2003, they turned many heads. Out of the 20 plus cars that went testing at Daytona, Angela Motorsports was able to score the 6th fastest time. However,
no way.
With everything surrounding Angela's life, something in the background was brewing and quickly turning this whole feel-good story into a complete, utter nightmare.
Oh no, what was it? I'm scared.
Before the testing session, Gary Jones was starting to be discovered by his fraudulent loans being created on his sisters. They weren't the only victims in his fraudulent loans. Remember earlier when I said that the down payments were made with Robert Yates Racing?
Yeah.
The way they paid for this was Gary Jones loaned himself $320,000 in the name of Art Farrell, a partner in a separate business venture. If that wasn't bad enough, Gary Jones would up the ante and create a fraudulent loan of $250,000 on Angela's mother, proving that they weren't below using their own family and friends for money. At this point, the duo had made fraudulent loans of over $1 million, and people were starting to notice. The bank in which Gary Jones was still employed with when they started Angela Motorsports saw the suspicious activity and put Jones on administrative leave in December of 2002, which eventually led to his termination around the time of testing being done
it's a fair termination.
At Daytona, meaning that one of their main sources of funding was now discovered and shut down. Now that checks were bouncing with the team and partners, tensions were high as everyone was wondering what was going on with Angela Motorsports. The team had a full-time primary sponsor with WiredFlyer.com on the hood of the car. However, that sponsorship was not all that it seemed to be. WiredFlyer.com was indeed a real business.
Oh, it
as
was.
They were an online travel industry, but with all the exposure people saw with the team, many presumed that they were a large corporation. But that wasn't the case either. WiredFlyer.com was indeed a partner with the team. However, their agreement was to take care of the travel expenses for the team and nothing more. Micro sponsors do for a racing team, but not a primary sponsor. So why were they being plastered on all of Angela Motorsports cars like they were a big-time bankroller? Well, it could be for two different reasons. One, they didn't want to bring suspicion to partners in NASCAR for bringing in all the money that they embezzled from fraudulent loans, but instead making it look like it was Wired Flyer bringing in the cash. Or two, they wanted to trick the owner of WiredFlyer.com of positioning the company as a big bankroller, so if a sponsorship couldn't go through, they would force WiredFlyer.com to pay a massive amount of money for sponsorship exposure. I believe the big sponsor that they were trying to get was Autostrada, but that cannot be confirmed. It turns out it was a little bit of both, as members of the team never grew suspicious of the sponsor until their checks started bouncing in mid-January. Gary Jones couldn't secure a sponsorship deal with a company from Texas who was going to be their big-time sponsor. This led to Angela Harkness stabbing Rick Barton, the owner of WiredFlyer.com, in the back by sending a demand letter for around $350,000 or face legal action. Angela Harkness and Gary Jones were clearly panicking, But this was only the beginning of their problems.
Only the beginning. Great.
Once Angela Motorsports checks started to bounce with Robert Yates Racing, Yates wasted no time in trying to acquire whatever equipment was leased in the deal. Engine, parts, you name it. Yates was going to make sure that none of his assets would be taken without payment.
Yeah,
He and some of
fair.
his crew members would actually go to Angela Motorsports' shop and clean out the team's shop and be gone before anyone could react.
What?
Cars, engines,
Undercover
sponsors,
operation.
everything was gone. The scam
Wow.
that Gary Jones and Angela Harkness had thought up less than a year ago came completely unglued, and the whole world was starting to figure out the two scam after just 5 months of being in business.
Oh,
With
so it was
everything out in
5
the
months
open
before
and
everything
nothing in their shop.
failed.
Angela Motorsports would shut down on January 28th,
2003.
With the shutdown of the team, many were left without a job, including pit crew members and even Mike McLaughlin, the driver. Pit crew members never received pay for their last few weeks due to their paychecks bouncing, leaving them in a really bad situation. Luckily for them, not everyone affiliated with Angela Motorsports were horrible people, as it was reported that Mike McLaughlin, Rick Barton, and even Robert Yates helped in paying the crew members on what they were owed during their time with the team. It is unclear if those pit crew members were able to find positions with other teams for 2003, but there was one person who for sure didn't, and that was Mike McLaughlin. Since it was so close to the start of the season, no one had an open position for the aging McLaughlin. Sure, he was able to find a ride in the Daytona 300 race with J. Robinson Racing. However, his next race wouldn't come until the 7th race of the season at Talladega, where he raced in Frank Cici's number 34 car, a team McLaughlin raced for in the early 90s. He would run 5 more races for the team, but unfortunately, Frank Cici had no plans to run any more races than that. McLaughlin tried to get back into full-time racing, but no one was wanting to hire him, and he was forced to retire as a driver in the Busch Series at the end of the 2004 season. He did go on to be successful in other areas, such as being a development driver coach for Joe Gibbs Racing and owning his own business that sells racing fabrications, so not truly a bad ending for Mike McLaughlin. The same couldn't be said for the owner of WiredFlyer.com,
Oh dear.
Rick Barton. After the whole debacle, Rick Barton would wind up losing over $80,000.
$80,000.
This put the owner in a bad financial strain and affected his health so badly that he suffered major heart problems. He would pass away 6 months later on July 30th to heart failure caused by stress from the whole ordeal.
What?
He was only 48 years old. With people destroyed financially and some even damaged physically, the biggest question on everyone's mind was, where were Angela Harkness and Gary Jones?
Yeah. What?
With
This
over
is
$1
insane.
million in loan frauds, the FBI were in search of the two suspects. Gary Jones was their primary culprit they were looking for, as he was signing all the loans with Wells Fargo. Even though he was no longer with the Wells Fargo branch, or with his wife that he cheated on with Angela, it didn't take too long for authorities to locate Jones. On March 13th of 2004, in the small town of Temple, Texas, Gary was found operating a sports bar and was apprehended for his crimes.
Okay.
He as well as Angela were arrested and charged with embezzlement, conspiracy, laundering, and bank fraud. It seemed like everything was finally going to be brought to justice, as Angela Harkness was about to take a plea deal of a single count of conspiracy to commit fraud in return for information regarding Gary Jones's crimes. It
Right.
seemed like for once, Angela Harkness was finally going to own up to her crimes and face the heat. Of
Sounds
course,
suspicious.
that was from a person who never had morals to begin with.
Yeah. Shortly after posting bail in 2004.
Before her sentencing, Angela Harkness was gone in a blink of an eye once
Wow.
again. It turned out that once she posted bail, she hightailed it towards the southern country of Mexico. Authorities were bewildered by the ordeal, and a search party was put together to search for the runaway criminal. During her time running from the law, she would first go to Mexico and quickly travel back to Germany, where her family moved back in the 70s, to find work at the one position she was always known for, stripping. She traveled more throughout the summer until she was finally arrested in the United Arab Emirates on a U.S. warrant on May 26 of 2005. U.S. Marshals worked with the government in Dubai and had her extradited to New York City and sent back to the state of Texas, where all the crimes began.
She's going everywhere.
Was finally over, and the two criminals were going to receive the justice that they deserved, even though it was a light one. In August of 2004, Gary Jones was sentenced to serve 3 years and 10 months in prison with 5 years probation and pay $1 million in restitution. On May 25th of 2007, Angela Harkness, now known again by her real name, Fatima Karakhani, was sentenced to 40 months in prison for conspiracy and unlawful flight to avoid justice. This whole event caused NASCAR to create a program where something like this never happened again.
Well, yeah.
In 2004, the
No surprise there.
program was created in order to develop and train drivers both on and off the track, as well as attract minorities and female individuals to the sport. Before an applicant is accepted into the program, their resumes are checked by NASCAR officials. A program
well
that is
done
still
there.
in the sport today to make sure nothing like Angela Motorsports ever happens again. As for Angela Motorsports' story, it is all but completed. But before we leave it at that, we are still not done with Fatima Karakhani.
Still not done.
As even after her prison sentence, she was still not done continuously getting in trouble with the law. On December 1st of 2018, Fatima was arrested for assault charges that caused bodily injury to a family member. Who exactly was assaulted is unclear. Not surprising for someone who was reported to be constantly assaulting her once husband. On June 24th of 2020, Fatima would be back in jail for driving while intoxicated in Williamson County, Texas. She would be charged with a misdemeanor for a DWI. Again, not surprising, as the whole time she was in the States, she suffered addiction to alcohol and drugs. To put it nicely, it seems like this insensitive human being is not looking to change her life of crime anytime soon. Thus concludes the full story of Angela Harkness and her Busch Series team. To be honest, I didn't plan for this story to be as long as it was, but it simply proves to us that even a small team that enters just one race in their existence can make such a major impact to a giant motorsports like NASCAR.
Well, yeah.
There are plenty more stories that will lead us through more rabbit holes than we can think, and it's because of that I will continue this series until most of these stories are finally explained. So for now, we will start up our engines and continue this journey going around in circles with the weirdest stories in NASCAR history.
I don't know what I was expecting, but that was insane. The video itself is just 12 out of 10. It was incredible. I absolutely loved it. Although there was so much information in it, the guy that does this channel managed to keep it entertaining, and it was really fun to watch. But the story itself, no idea that happened, and that is just crazy that they got into NASCAR and that happened, and all the crimes that she had done, and her husband and everything. Oh my god, yeah. The story just kept going, and it just kept getting worse and worse the more things that were coming out. But I hope that he's done a few more videos on different stories, like he said there, because I will probably try and get through some more of them. But yeah, I absolutely love that video. So thank you to the people who requested this video. And with that being said, if you have any other videos that you'd like me to react to, drop them in the comments. I'm working my way through everybody's suggestions at the moment. If you did want to check out any of my other socials or become a Patreon member and get early access to videos like this or top priority of your suggestions, then you can do all of that down below. But I hope you enjoyed today's reaction, and I will catch you next time for the next one. Bye!